Welcome, welcome everybody. Come in and get a seat. Glad to have you. We're going to do a little spiel here to talk about Therafin for the last 50 years. But that's quite a long time. So, but we're really glad you're here. So, we have all sorts of people here. We have customers. Can you not hear me? Oh, sorry. Sorry, yeah, Pete's yelling at me back here. We have customers. Thank you, customers. Yeah, that's right. We need you guys. That's what we do. We have some vendors. I was talking to Joe. Where's Joe? He's been working with us for plywood for over 30 years. And Conrad's here somewhere. Where's Mike? I don't know where Mike is. He's somewhere. But there's so many vendors. Thank you so much for all your support over the years. We have some neighbors. I think. Are any neighbors? No? The neighbors blew us off, but no. We have some village folks. Where's some village folks? They're over here, I know. Some trustees and so forth. Thanks for coming. We have some family. Thanks, family, for coming over in. And we have a lot of friends. We have some old timers. I just met Kent. Kent, stand up, Kent. Kent was the #2 official employee of Therafin. Yeah. #1 was planning on coming, but he's fixing a steam machine or a steam engine somewhere, I guess. So that's amazing. Thank you so much for being here. But we are going to go on a little journey here, the last 50 years. And I thought you'd enjoy this. I hope you enjoy this as much as I did. Because I actually, by putting this thing together, I learned some more details about Therafin and my father as he went through this journey. So it was a lot of fun. But it all started back in Huntington Beach, California in 1968. And to figure out why in the world we started in Huntington Beach in 1968, I have to go back and I have to give you a little history about my father. His name was Gib. Actually, his name was Gilbert, but he went by Gib or Gibby Lee or Gibby Jr. or Dad or whatever we wanted to call him that day. But my father, Gib, was the oldest of 5 children. So he's on the right. Is that right? It's on the right? Okay. Yeah, I'm an engineer, sorry. So, but he did play the tuba. I played the tuba also, if you want to tune later on. But he was the son of a very creative man who ultimately landed in a business making component house parts in Crete, Illinois. They were building stairs, trusses, and walls. They'd throw them on a truck, and they'd drive up to the destination community, and they would slap together houses like in a day. And so he was very, very handy. He was very, very creative, and Dad picked a lot of those things up as he went through his early days. Dad ultimately ended up at the University of Illinois, and he chose to study occupational therapy. The reason he chose occupational therapy is I think he took one of those tests of like, what do you want to do when you grow up? And it said he should be an occupational therapist. So he did that. But at that time, the field was filled with women, and they made no money. But so he was down at the University of Illinois, and after he graduated with his degree in occupational therapy, he ultimately became the supervisor of the occupational therapy world at the University of Illinois. And at the U of I, this was back in the early 60s. Rehab didn't exist. It was like an unknown kind of thing going on. But he had the fortunate chance to be mentored and work with a fabulous guy named Tim Nugent. And this picture, Tim, is close to his, well after his retirement. But he put together probably the first comprehensive program to service disabled people on a university campus. And Dr. Nugent really made the University of Illinois the first in many things. So, you know, the curb cuts that we see on the sidewalks, they were first done at the U of I. The first bus that had a wheelchair seating on it was at the University of Illinois. And he, through his efforts, his research, he actually developed the architectural standards that ultimately were adopted nationwide. So he was in the hands of a great mentor at the time. He loved what he did. My dad just loved what he did. And so he bought this house. It was sort of a dump, if I remember it, in Champaign. And he decided, partly out of necessity, he had to figure out, how am I going to pay for this thing? But he also had a passion to help people. So what he did is he converted the first level to an all-accessible home. And this was in 61 or 62, and it just didn't happen back then. So he was putting this place together for individuals to get involved at a university degree level, where in the past they never would have had the ability or the opportunity to go to university and live by themselves. So way back, I lived, I think, on the third floor of this house. Is that right? Third floor? Something like that? But I don't remember. I was 1. So, I don't remember a lot. I do remember stories, though. And I want to tell you a story. I want to share a memory about this home. And I'm going to call it The Mystery of the Huge Tomatoes. And Mom loved tomatoes. She liked planting stuff. And she planted some tomatoes around the house. And there was this one plant that made huge tomatoes. I mean, just massive tomatoes. But all the plants didn't do as well as this one tomato plant. And nobody could figure out, why in the world is this one plant doing so well? Well, the mystery was solved when somebody was outside one day and they saw the window roll up and somebody dumping something out the window. Well, one of the students, one of the tenants of Tanbriar, used a leg bag to collect his urine. And every day, he would empty his leg bag out the window. Well, guess what was right beneath the window? The tomato plant. So you guys, always wash your tomatoes. But he loved being around people. He loved helping things. He loved getting engaged with people at any level. He also had lots of fun. So in 1962, a group of about 17 wheelchair athletes were they knocked on their door and said, "Would you come to South Africa and show us what an active lifestyle of somebody in a wheelchair would look like?" So they went over there in 62. The picture of the plane was crazy, the old-time bombers. They went over there and they went and toured and played basketball and square danced and all kind of stuff, showing what was going on. But this article I found in the archives of the University of Illinois sort of explains the kind of father my dad was. So it says, the trip to South Africa was a long one, and basically during a short stay in Rome, Jan Little, who was in a wheelchair, she was poking fun at her teammate, Paul Sons and Gilbert Fink, my dad, for amusing a few Romans by washing out their dainties and hanging them out the window on the end of Paul's crutch. Apparently, they were not very secure, or not secured very well, because a not too well-dressed Fink had to sneak down to the alley to retrieve them. So, my dad was crazy, okay? He didn't care what he did. He was super creative, but he just sort of didn't care what people thought. But that sort of helped him be the creative kind of guy. He wasn't stuck to rules and regulations. He went out and just designed stuff. Well, in about 1967-ish, he decided to go on the next adventure. And he wanted to go and work for an innovative wheelchair manufacturer called Stainless Specialties in California. And their claim to fame at that time is they had one of the lightweight wheelchairs in the industry. The lightweight wheelchair weighed 38 pounds. So how much is a lightweight wheelchair nowadays? Come on, you guys. You guys. 19, 20 pounds. So half the weight, you know. But this was, this is what he was out trying to sell. So the Fink family got in a truck, moved out to Southern California from Champaign, Illinois, to start our new life. Well, shortly after he started there, his boss, the president, he was killed in a tragic auto accident. And the new management came in. They were leading in a different way, and my father soon realized that he had no future at Stainless Specialties. And I don't think the new boss and him got along too well. So I think about 5 minutes before he got fired, he quit. Okay? And then, this is what happened. He didn't have a job. He didn't have any food. He had 3 kids. He didn't know what to do. So guess what happened? Therafin started. In Huntington Beach, California in 1968 in the garage. I still remember counting bolts in the garage in Huntington Beach for him when I was 8 years old. And some people ask, well, how in the world did Therafin, the name Therafin, come? Well, it was always a mixture of therapeutic adaptives and Fink, Therafin. Therafink sounded too stupid, so he dropped the K. So it's Therafin. That's how we're at. So we went from California to a house in the basement of this house that was built in the 1800s. It was like a dungeon in the basement. I still remember George Kester standing at the lathe making suppository inserters, you know. And I'll never forget it. You go down there, George, what you doing? And you know, making suppository inserters, you know. And but it was a tiny little cracker box of a place, but that's what we did. We really upgraded in '72 when we went across the street to my grandfather's wood shop, and it looked about like that. So it was pretty dilapidated. You know, I'm sure it leaked, sort of like the Mokina building, but probably worse.
That building they drugged there in a snowstorm with horses.
Did you hear that? That building was drugged there in a snowstorm with horses. So it's a long time ago. You know, about that time, Therafin actually started working with Fred Salmons, and Fred is here. So, he had a wonderful business making stuff for the OT and the PT market, and Dad and him worked quite well together over the years, and he designed many things, and Fred had a very successful business, and we still sell stuff to this company, but I think they've gone through about 5 or 6 name changes now, but Fred really was the start of that, and Fred's going to say a few words.
Okay. Jim and I had a great time. One time we went all the way down the East Coast looking for new ideas. Then we came home and we made a good, we made a better, and a best on about 100 products that we, maybe 50 products that we developed at that time. And therapists didn't like the good one because they could make that themselves. They didn't like the best one. All they wanted was the good one. So we learned a lesson in marketing there. But Todd, I brought you a cardboard box that I found in my garage. And it has a nice logo and a name and a telephone number. And you can see there that, but there has to be some kind of a message inside. And I found the message. The message is COD. It means call on Dad. 50 years later, you folks sitting here are still calling on Dad. You're calling on Gib the resources, the inspiration, the outlook, the wonderful attitude that he had. And it's still COD, and let's go for another 50, okay?
Thank you, Fred. Yeah. Thank you so much, Fred. So, Fred, good friend of the family, he actually was my wife and I's chauffeur for our wedding 35 years ago from the top of the mountain in Boulder, Colorado down to our reception. So it's good to have you, Fred, here. But you know, the building in Crete ran out of room. So we had to move over to the community, the next community over in Stager. And Dad bought this factory from another vendor of ours who did a lot of our metal work, Paul Gilliam, and he needed more space, so we sort of traded. He went up and we went up. And we stayed there until we just were busting at the seams. Every day we'd open the garage door and we'd have to bring all the stuff out in the parking lot because we didn't have enough room to build stuff. And then at the end of the day, we'd shovel it back in and wait for tomorrow and do it over again. So, you know, we never thought we'd run out of room at that place. So then we moved to Mokina in 1992. That place was about 2.5 times the size as our other place. And it just, you know, we were never going to run out of room there. And, but, you know, inevitably, you know what happened. So a couple years after we made that big move, my mom unexpectedly passed away. And that was Dad's lifelong partner, you know, almost 40 years. And that really sent him into a tailspin. You know, he was missing Mom. And at that time, he took a step back from the day-to-day operations of Therafin. And he still was very active in the creative and doing special projects. But he just took a step back. And then that next Christmas, he always played Santa Claus. You know, he sort of looks like Santa Claus. But he couldn't deal with the thought of being Santa Claus without Mom. So he went on his elf journey. My dad is an elf, you know, and he was crazy, okay? So he did all sorts of crazy stuff. But during that time, we were trying to sell our stuff at med trades and trying to get exposure to med trades, at med trades of all of our products. And we had no idea how to display all the products that we made because we made all sorts of stuff. And here's some original. Oh yeah. So what do you think? Dad's elf shoes, you know. But he went on this creative sort of binge at how to present our stuff at med trades creatively. So we had a fish shack, you know, and it had shoehorns and suppository inserters and transfer boards and wheelchair trays. And people would look at this thing and they'd sort of look around and like, what do you do? You know, or do I fish? You know, and we go, no, we just wanted to show a bunch of stuff in a creative way. And then he did his elf thing and people said, you know, what do you do? Kind of thing. But, you know, I even had to wear some of these shoes. He made me wear shoes. You know, it was crazy. So, you know, people at the med trades loved the creativity. I don't think we sold any more, but you know, we had a good time. Then in about 2004, Dad ultimately passed of an 18-month bout with leukemia. And, you know, Dad was still Dad. He, in the hospital, he was walking the halls when he could, encouraging all the young kids with leukemia in the same plight as him, just trying to help, you know, trying to do whatever he could to encourage those kids. And the nursing staff, after he passed, approached the family and said, you know, he did more for us than we did for him. Sorry about that, but he's a great guy. We miss him. And I know he'd be proud. So we continued to grow. And we grew and grew and grew. And we landed in Frankfurt here in 2011 at our current facility. And we purchased this building from Bimba Manufacturing. They made air cylinders at the time, and they chose not to use this facility anymore. And Bimba purchased this from a local farmer who's just to the west. I don't know, is Jean here? Is Jean here? She's not here. But his daughter actually still cuts our lawn. So she still has a connection to us. But in those 50 years, we went from 6 products, mainly aids for daily living, to thousands and thousands and thousands of products in 2018. And what used to be all manual operations is highly automated now with computers everywhere and custom software and great employees that know how to make this stuff work. And we do custom stuff all day long, and we make good stuff. And we make it fast. And thank you, Therafin employees. And hopefully on the tour you saw some of that stuff that we manufacture. Now, what's new? Here's some stuff that you might not know. If you took the tour, you might know a little bit. But we started sort of another venture within Therafin called Therafin Innovation. And what it was going to be, and it still is, it's sort of an incubator for new product ideas, not necessarily related to the rehab world. Whatever it is. And our first adventure actually, ironically, had something to do with people in wheelchairs. But it sold to a radically different market. It wasn't the traditional rehab market. It went to athletes that were trying to compete in a thing called boccia. And boccia is an adapted sport for people in wheelchairs that mimics bocce ball. You know, all the hard balls that you play in your backyard kind of thing. And so a former engineer of ours, Tom Roop, who is now pursuing a PhD at Marquette, happened to be babysitting for a neighbor, and the neighbor was connected to the boccia world, and Tom spoke of, hey, we make all sorts of stuff, and Jason came down, he says, I need a ramp for this bocce world for people that can't hold the ball. So that became our first adventure in the Therafin Innovation product. And you know, the ramp started as simple tubes of PVC, and then it turns out that many of the ramps were manufactured overseas. Some were in Turkey, some were in England, some were in Eastern Europe. Very few were being manufactured in the United States. So we went on that adventure, and the Gravity brand was essentially established. And within a very short period of time, 18 months about, the Gravity brand has become a market leader in the boccia world. When we went to the nationals and to watch the people compete from all over the country, over half of the athletes were using Gravity branded stuff. So that was pretty fun to see that happen. And now we sell these ramps and accessories all over the world. We also just had another launch of a product we call it the Scenic product, our Scenic brand. And one of our employees, Dan Chalupka, he's a production supervisor. Where are you, Dan? Back there, there's Dan. Dan is sort of a camping nut, and he said, we need to come up with a product for this world. And we ultimately came up, well, it was his brainchild, and we've helped refine it. And we came up with this thing called the Trail Chef. And the Trail Chef is something that goes in the back of a pickup truck or a big truck, and it essentially pulls out a kitchen. Just that, you know, you just pull it out and you have a whole kitchen. And somebody, I can't remember, maybe Pete's wife, said, you know, the traditional rehab market, like wheelchair trays, transfer boards, suppository inserters, people in that world don't have a lot of money. They just don't have a lot of money. And the stuff that we manufacture, they really would rather not have. They need it, and they like it, and they desire it, but they really would rather not have it. So I think she said, you know, in this rehab market, we make stuff that people don't want, and they don't have enough to pay for it. You know, and you're going, well, that's not a great business model, is it? You know, but 50 years later, we're still going strong. Well, the Scenic market, somebody said, they pay nearly a fortune to live like a homeless person. So, you know, we said, what the heck, we're going to give that a try. And that was launched just recently. So if you want a fancy kitchen, go on to scenicgear.com. You can get one. Some other new stuff. About 2 weeks ago, we plugged in a 228 kilowatt solar plant on our roof. And yeah, it's nice. Thanks. You know, getting into solar, you'd think it's like an easy thing. but there was some pushback from it's new. What do you do? You know, is it going to be ugly? All that kind of stuff. But thanks, folks from Frankfurt, they were on our side and said, hey, we want to push forward to do that, and we did. And I just checked on my little app before this presentation. So in a 6-hour time frame, and it was really cloudy this morning. It was cloudy this morning, but in 6 hours of cloudy day, we generated 404 kilowatt hours of power. And you guys that don't know anything about power, an average house runs on less than 30 and 24 hours. So in 6 hours on a cloudy day, we produced way more, 10 households already. Now, households are not using that. We are. But we don't work on Fridays. So the households are using it on Fridays, they're using it on Saturdays, and they're using it on Sundays. And that all goes into the grid. And our little app even tells us, how many trees we're saving and how much CO2 stuff that we're, saving in the environment. So it's a great thing. So we're really proud of that also. But, we have a lot of new things going on. But I do want you to know Therafin Corporation in our current business is going stronger than ever. We continue to innovate. We continue to make new products. We continue to create new partnerships. And I just, again, want to thank all of you. People have been integral in our success. Like the Zigglers, we still manufacture a product that they designed, I don't know how many years ago. What? How long? 25, 30 years. Just thanks for trusting us with your ideas and that we can continue to bring them to the market. But thanks so much. Thanks for listening.